Hey guys, so in this video, I'm talking about blood pressure. And what is blood pressure? Blood pressure is the force that the blood places on the vessels, the blood vessels, as it moves through. Okay, now blood pressure is gotten by a simple equation. So blood pressure is equals to cardiac output multiplied by systemic vascular resistance. Okay, so if you multiply the cardiac output of the heart and the systemic vascular resistance, you get your blood pressure. Remember, I talked about the cardiac output in former videos. I talked about the cardiac output in my previous video, so you can go check that out. Now, what is cardiac output? Cardiac output is just the amount of blood that is ejected from the heart per minute. Okay, and how is that gotten? It is gotten when you multiply the stroke volume by the heart rate. And we know that the stroke volume is about 70 mils. Okay, so the stroke volume is the amount of blood that leaves the heart at a beat. So each beat ejects about 70 mils of blood out from the ventricle, the right ventricle. Okay, so when you multiply that value by the heart rate, which is approximately 70 beats per minute, you will get about 4.9 liters, which is approximately 5 liters of blood going through the heart every minute. Okay, so that's cardiac output. And what is systemic vascular resistance? Systemic vascular resistance is a resistance that is placed on the blood vessels as the heart passes. Okay, so let's assume this is the blood vessel. Systemic vascular resistance is the resistance that is placed on the walls of the blood vessels. Okay, so this resistance determine this the systemic value resistance. This resistance determines the blood pressure. Okay, so if you increase the resistance, you increase blood pressure. If you lower the resistance, you lower blood pressure. So this has a very vital role to play when it comes to blood pressure. Okay, so when you constrict, if you constrict this blood vessel, what happens is that the pressure becomes more, pressure becomes high because the blood will have to force itself through a small vessel. But if the vessel is dilated, is big, the blood may just pass even without touching the walls of the vessels. Okay, so that is that about systemic vascular resistance. Okay, so the blood pressure is often written as a fraction, but it's not a fraction, neither is it a ratio. The average blood pressure is 120 over 80 millimeter of mercury, millimeters of mercury. Now, this is not a fraction, it is just how the blood pressure is written. The up value or the upper value is the systolic value, and the lower value is the diastolic value. And remember, we said systolic is what? Contraction. When the heart contracts, that's the systolic value. The lower, which is diastolic value, refers to relaxation. So when the heart is relaxed, the pressure is at 80. When the heart contracts, the pressure is at 120. Now, the both of them are pressures of the atrials. They are pressures of the atrials. Pressure of atrials. Most people say that the diastolic value, which is 80, is pressure of the venous. It is not correct. So they both values are both atrialis pressure. Okay, they're both atrialis pressure. That's and the basic difference between them is that the systolic value is gotten when the heart beats. So at the beat of the heart, at the beat of the heart, it oscillates to 120. Then when the heart relax, it comes to 80. So diastolic is the value between when the heart beats and when it relaxes. So it has this oscillatory movement 120 80 120 80. Now it can be around 11577. It's also a good blood pressure. All the medications that are given for blood pressure, it affects salient parts. The first part it affects is the contraction of the heart. There's a certain volume of blood in the ventricles. It affects contraction of the heart. Let me state them here. Contraction. It also affects the volume of blood. It also affects the systemic vascular resistance, and all this process is controlled by the sympathetic nervous system, sympathetic nervous system, and the parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, so this is just a basic overview of blood pressure. Thank you, and see you in my next video.